Hello, this is Paranormal Girl, and today I'm going to talk about the Ghosts of Tombstone. Like so many other places in the Old West with violent histories, Tombstone is said to be one of the most haunted in Arizona. The streets of Tombstone themselves are said to be the pathways of many a lingering spirit, one of which is the long-dead Marshal Fred White, who is accidentally shot by a cowboy faction leader, Curly Bill Barocius, on October 28th, 1880. White, the first Marshal of Tombstone, had gained the respect of the Clanton gang and in fact had arrested cowboy members on a number of occasions, rarely having any problems when doing so. In the early morning of October 28th, Curly Bill and several of his cohorts were making sport by shooting up the town. When White went to disarm the gunman, a shot was accidentally fired, hitting White in the groin. Though it was thought he would make a full recovery, 2 days later he died. Today he's said to haunt the street in front of the shooting site, which was an empty lot where the Birdcage Theatre was built a year later. Another cowboy, that of a man moving along in a long black frock coat, has also been seen on a number of occasions crossing the road. The apparition is often seen near the site where Virgil Earp was ambushed and shot in the arm, crippling him for life. The spirit never makes it across the street, leading many to believe that it may be the ghost of Virgil Earp himself. A woman in a long white dress has also been spied on Tombstone streets. One legend tells that she is a fretful mother whose child died from the yellow fever in the 1880s, and devastated, she took her own life later. Another version of the tale claims that she was a brothel madame who was hanged and continued to stalk the streets in search of her executioners. Lawlessness, though, was not the only cause of numerous deaths during Tombstone's heydays. Twice it suffered terrible fires, the first in June of 1881 and a second in May of 1882. During these two infernos, which both wiped out significant areas of the business district, more than 40 men lost their lives in the crowded saloons and brothels that burnt to the ground. These long-dead suffering men are also said to make themselves known, appearing complete with drastic burns. Others have reported the smell of smoke and burning materials where there is no explainable reason. Tombstone's most famous place, the OK Corral, was the site of the best-known gunfight occurring in the Old West. Portrayed in dozens of Western films and books, the gunfight made a legend of Wyatt Earp and brought Tombstone, Arizona, fame. After tensions had built between the Earps and the cowboy faction in Tombstone, for some time Marshal Virgil Earp determined to disarm the men on October 26, 1881, resulting in a 30-second shootout, which led Frank and Tom McLawley, as well as Billy Clanton, dead. Also involved in the gunfight for the Cowboys were Ike Clanton, Billy Claiborne, and Wes Fuller. In the Earp party were brothers Virgil, Wyatt, and Morgan, as well as Doc Holliday. Today, the OK Corral is allegedly haunted by the ghost of the cowboys over the years. A number of witnesses have reported seeing the fading apparitions of men dressed in cowboy attire, often appearing with guns drawn, perhaps locked in a perpetual battle with the Earps. Others have claimed to have felt numerous cold spots in various areas of the corral. The OK Corral is at 308 E. Allen Street. At the nearby Boot Hill graveyard, called such because of many of its occupants died with their boots on, more than 250 graves give partial stories of the Tombstone's lawless past. Used primarily from 1878 to 1884, the graveyard was originally called the Tombstone Cemetery. Men such as those killed at the OK Corral gunfight, Marshal Fred White, killed by Curly Bill Brocchius, an unfortunate soul by the name of George Johnson, who was hanged by mistake, 5 men hanged for the vicious killings labelled the Bisbee Massacre, gunfighter Charlie Storms, who was killed by Luke Short, and dozens more, ranging from prospectors to outlaws, lawmen and prostitutes, of some who were laid to rest here. Their names were never known, or will only be known by nickname. Over the years, the old cemetery fell into disrepair, with numerous old wooden tombstones falling or decomposing entirely, and others being stolen by sovereign souvenir hunters. It wasn't until the town's first Eldorado days, around 1929, the old cemetery began to be referred as the Boot Hill Graveyard. Still, it continued to sit neglected until the 1940s, when an effort began to restore the cemetery. Today, it's one of Tombstone's most popular tourist attractions. Eventually, a number of legends, it also remains popular with many dead who lie there. Visitors often report seeing strange lights and hearing unidentifiable noises coming from the old graveyard. Spirits have been spied on numerous occasions, and even more frequently are said to appear in photographs. Billy Clanton, killed in the gunfight at the OK Corral, is said to rise from his grave before walking along the road back to Tombstone. The next part of this Ghosts of Tombstone will be the Birdcage Theatre, one of the oldest original buildings in Tombstone and the most authentic attractions is the once booming mining camp, the Birdcage Theatre. Also has the reputation as being the most haunted place in town, allegedly continuing to host as many as 31 ghosts. The birdcage was named for its 14 small cribs hanging from the ceiling that once housed painted ladies dressed as finely feathered birds. After its opening in 1881, it quickly gained a reputation as the wildest place in town. So much so that even as far away as New York Times said of it, the Birdcage Theatre is the wildest, wickedest night spot between Basin Street and Barrowby Coast. Between 1881 and 1889, the Birdcage never closed its doors 24 hours a day, as it provided gambling, drinking and other vices to its many customers. The saloon was the scene of 26 deaths, which can be attested by the 140 bullet holes which still can be viewed at the Birdcage today. Since 1934, the old building has served as a museum owned and operated by the Hunley family. It still houses the gilded cages, hand-painted stage, and the original grand piano. Here, where tourists can walk along the floors of its historic honky-tonk, once walked the likes of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Seemingly, some of these old legends of the past continue to stalk the old saloon, as both staff and guests alike have reported seeing ghostly apparitions in 1800s clothing. Most often cited is the figure of a male stage hand that appears wearing a black striped pants, a visor, and holding a clipboard as he walks across the stage. Other occurrences include the sounds of raucous laughter and music pouring from the doors of the old theatre at night. Other reports hearing the faint sounds of a woman singing, and the museum's sound system has inexplicably turned itself on by its own accord, blaring old-time music. Others have reported strange sounds coming from the balconies on the main floor, and the sharp scents of cigar smoke and whiskey. After closing time, staff often hear the sounds of clinking glasses and cards shuffling. The haunting reports date back to 1921, when a school was built across the street and students began to report the sounds of laughter and music coming from the abandoned building, as well as the smell of cigar smoke. Over the years, the Henley family, staff and visitors alike have experienced a number of strange events. One of the most fascinating tales is how a dice table, which weighed several £100, mysteriously moved the night before. When staff arrived the next morning, the table had moved in front of a door with a sign that read, "Don't disturb our 26 resident ghosts." The table is so heavy that it reportedly took 8 men to move it back to its former position. Another story tells of a statue of Wyatt Earp that was made and placed in one of the cribs overlooking the theatre. When it was first placed there, staff would arrive in the morning to find Wyatt's hat continually knocked off and thrown onto the floor below. This occurred over and over for about 6 months. On one occasion, staff arrived to find the statue was turned around, with its back facing the view from below. Sometime later, a local historian told the Henleys that they had placed the Wyatt Earp statue in the crib that was usually reserved by the Clantons. When the statue was moved to a crib that Wyatt actually frequented when he was alive, the hat tossing finally stopped. On another occasion, a valuable antique poker chip, which had been missing for many years, suddenly reappeared on the poker table. Upon finding it there, it was locked away in a safe until it could be authenticated by historians. However, when the historians arrived, they were disappointed to find that the chip had suddenly gone missing again. Only after they left did it reappear in a locked desk drawer. The Birdcage Theatre has been the site of numerous paranormal investigations featured on popular television programs. The next in the series of the Ghosts of Tombstone will be Nellie Cashman's restaurant. Nellie Cashman's restaurant is another haunted location with the spirits allegedly visiting this old building since frontier days. Located in Nellie Cashman's old restaurant and boarding house, once called Russ House, this quaint little restaurant of today is said to continue to host a spirit or two. Its original owner, Nellie Cashman, was one of the Old West's original female entrepreneurs, as well as a prospector and an angel of mercy, known throughout the West for her charity, courage, and determination. After having travelled to the mining camps in Nevada and Canada, Cashman made her way to Tombstone in 1880, where she opened the Russ House. Soon, she moved on to another mining camp, but not until she made a mark on Tombstone. Though most do not believe that the original building's owner, who continues to lurk within its walls, they do believe there is someone there. Both staff and customers have made several reports of playful spirits who continue to make their presence known. Often staff will arrive in the morning to find that objects have been moved during the night. Strange noises, crashing sounds, and even muted voices have been heard in the building. Lights mysteriously turn on and off on their own accord, and sudden changes in temperature are felt in various areas. Though these spirits are seemingly harmless, they do seem to be sensitive to criticism, making themselves known when people express their non-belief. In fact, on one occasion when a customer was making fun of the ghosts, a mustard bottle suddenly jumped from the table, leaving her clothing splattered with the yellow gook. Yet others have actually professed having seen an apparition of a woman, most presuming it be Nellie herself. However, ghost investigators doubt this, as Nellie actually died in Canada many years after leaving Tombstone. Later, after Nellie had moved on, the building was used as a boarding house, and allegedly a woman who lived there was murdered by a man who was also living there. The investigators believe that it's this woman who continues to lurk within the building. Beaufort House. At the historic Beaufort House in the 1880s abode home, which now serves as a bed and breakfast, the ghost of a man named George Beaufort apparently refuses to leave. In the late 19th century, George, a gold prospector, lived in the house with his father when he fell in love with the girl across the street, Cleopatra, more familiarly called Petra. After returning from a long prospecting trip, George accompanied Petra and some other friends on an outing. For some reason, the girl decided to accompany another man on the walk home. George, sure that he had lost his promised girl, became angry, despondent, and reclusive. Soon, when Petra visited him, he shot her twice, then turned the gun on himself. Despite her wounds, Petra recovered, but George died of his self-inflicted gunshot. Like others who died tragic deaths, George continued to walk the earth, apparently lost in space and time. Both the owners and guests have seen him walking inside their home, as well as along the street in front of the old abode structure. Often the doorbell rings in the middle of the night, seemingly on its own accord. Others have reported hearing knockings on the walls, faucets turning themselves on and off, and strange lights appearing. Once in a while, women report that they have felt someone touch their hair or stroke the back of their necks when no one is around. The Sheffling Hall. At Sheffling Hall, a building constructed in 1881 to bring culture to Tombstone, yet more ghosts are thought to remain here. Built by Al Sheffling, brother of Tombstone's founder, Ed Sheffling, the hall was envisioned as a first-class opera house, offering culture to the citizens of Tombstone for the first time, and it did for the next several decades, offering a theatre alternative to the decadent Birdcage Theatre, where the proper people of Tombstone wouldn't be seen. The hall opened in June 1881 to grand applause as the largest, most imposing building in Tombstone, as well as the largest abode building anywhere in the southwest. Attracting theatre troupes from far away as New York, Tombstone's finest enjoy the productions, as well as balls, boxing matches, lectures, and more. According to the news accounts at the time, it soon gained the reputation as the most noted theatre between San Antonio and San Francisco. However, when Tombstone suffered, so did the Sheffling Hall. By the early 1900s, the hall was showing anew moving pictures, as well as a few scattered productions. But Tombstone's heydays were over, and for the next half-century, the hall would be used only by the Masonic Lodge, as it gradually fell into disrepair as the rest and the once booming town. Fully restored today, it's said to continue a host of number of spirits. In fact, some say it's one of the most haunted but overlooked buildings in Tombstone. On several occasions, people have heard what sounds like chains or spurs rattling inside the building. In fact, during one ghost tour, an entire group heard the sounds. A number of other strange sounds has also been heard in the building, especially during Tombstone City Council meetings that regularly occur in the building. One does wonder if perhaps they protest because seemingly those meetings are so heated that one might wonder if they have reverted to the 19th century. And the final part of the story of the ghosts of Tombstone is Big Nose Kate's Saloon. This popular saloon of today first got its start as the Grand Hotel in September 1880, declared as one of the finest hotels in the state. The hotel was luxuriously furnished, provided thick carpeting, and its walls were adorned with costly oil paintings. Providing 16 bedrooms, each with a view, they were fitted with solid walnut furnishings, toilet stands, fine fixtures, and wallpaper. The lobby was equipped with 3 elegant chandeliers and more luxurious furnishings, while the kitchen boasted hot and cold running water and facilities to serve some 500 people in the span of a couple of hours. The hotel opened with an invitation-only ball on September the 9th, 1880. During its first few years, the hotel often housed some of Tombstone's most famous residents, including Wyatt and Virgil Earp, Doc Holliday, and the Clanton gang, when they came into town. In fact, Ike Clanton and two McClawley brothers were registered guests the night before the famous OK Corral gunfight. There was also another interesting character living at the hotel during its heyday, a man they called Swamper, a janitor and an odd-job man of the hotel. The Swamper was regarded as an honest employee and was given accommodations as part of his pay. His bedroom, located in a dark corner of the basement, not only served as a retreat from the hotel's many customers, but also his own private mine shaft. The basement, located deep below the surface of Tombstone streets, was not too far from the many mine shafts which ran beneath the town. For some time, Swamper painstakingly spent his off hours tunneling an entrance from his bedroom to the nearby mine shafts. When his tunnel was complete, he was able to access a thick vein of silver, where he began to moonlight as a miner, taking from the vein silver nugget after nugget. What he did after hoarding the silver is unknown, but many believe it's still hidden somewhere beneath the Big Kate's saloon. Alas, the Grand Hotel's luxurious life would be a short one, as she did not survive the devastating fire of May the 25th, 1882. Above ground, the only thing that remained standing were her several graceful arches and her floor joists on the main level. The rest of the building collapsed into the basement. Today the building is home to Big Nose Kate's saloon. A number of changes have been made to the original structure since it burnt down and has been rebuilt. The bar area was originally housed in the basement of the old hotel, and it's now located on the main level. In the basement is a gift shop where the tunnel leading to the mine shaft still exists. The saloon holds the Grand Hotel's original long bar, the only one which survived the fire of 1882 and is still available for thirsty patrons. The only other long bar that survived the two infernos is the Birdcage Theatre, which is now a museum. Imagine setting your elbows down on the very place that once the Earps, Doc Holliday and the Clantons. Today, not only does this historic saloon continue to be popular among its new patrons, but it's also said to remain home to a couple of spectral ones as well. Naturally, the most evident is that of Swamper, who allegedly has never left the building. Staff, locals and tourists alike have had experiences with this old miner, ranging from photographs where he has appeared to a number of fleeting appearances as he roams the halls, stairways and especially the basement. Part of the legend claims that Swamper hid his silver somewhere in the building and returns to protect it. Other appearances have been made by fleeting cowboy spirits which have been seen at the bar, standing in doorways and by one account knocking over cases of beer in the basement. Perhaps this is one of our old friends, the Earps or Holliday. Other witnesses have claimed to have heard phantom people singing and talking in deserted rooms, reported that things fall to the floor of their own accord, doors opening and closing with unseen hands, lights turning on and off by themselves, and silverware has been known to go flying off the tables. The mannequins on the false balcony have seemingly been moved and sometimes even tossed from the balcony. The sounds of footsteps and muted voices are often heard coming from the basement when no one is down there. Areas in the saloon also experience extreme cold spots and gusts of cold air. Photographers have had numerous reports of strange hazy forms appearing in images, as well as having numerous camera malfunctions. One story tells of the building's owner and several employees exploring Old Swamper's tunnel. They soon discovered that it still led all the way to the old shafts of the Tough Nut mine. Safely they made their way back to the basement, but as they approached Swamper's tunnel, they heard a loud moaning sound and heavy footsteps coming down the stairs leading to the tunnel. Sure that someone had come into the building, they came out of the tunnel, immediately searching the premises, only to find the building empty and the door still locked. Perhaps Swamper was afraid they were going to find his silver. Other strange events have occurred on the staircases leading to the basement, including female employees who have felt pushed off the last stair. Another female employee felt cold, clammy hands encircling her throat. Whenever you do, don't let the ghost scare you, because the atmosphere and food at Big Kate's Saloon is wonderful, and the place is a must-stop in Tombstone. More ghosts. There are yet more hauntings in Tombstone, such as the ghost of allegedly haunting rooms 119 at the old Tombstone Hotel. Sometime in the past, a man eventually hanged himself in the room. And now guests report hearing voices and witnesses objects moving in the room. A ghostly man in a frock coat has been seen wandering near the old Wells Fargo Bank building, while others have reported seeing the apparitions of stage drivers and cowboys. In front of the recreated CS Fly studio, people have reported smelling perfume when there is none present. At the renovated Crystal Palace Saloon, people say the ghost of Big Nose Kate continues to lurk. Eventually, when she lived in Tombstone, the establishment was one of her favourites. Today, staff and customers have reported the unexplainable movements of objects to different locations, lights that turn on and off by themselves, and gambling wheels that spin of their own accord. According to the tales, Kate is not alone in the building, as yet others have spied phantom cowboys at the bars walking around in the saloon. So I wonder if these phantom cowboys might be Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. I wonder. You decide. And of course, without saying, if you've never watched Tombstone, I suggest you do. It is a wonderful story, a brilliant film, and it stars Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. I suggest you have a little look at it. It's a really good film and one of my very favourites.